excitement, adventure, cool stuff, and weird stuff.
Hi, Naomi. I'm here at the Springs Preserve, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about history.
Today was my first day at the Springs Preserve, and it was an awesome adventure. There were animals that I never thought lived here. Look at that! That's cool. There were huge butterflies and some of the prettiest plants ever. There were even some of the smallest houses I've ever seen, and they were all part of Las Vegas. So I ran into this guy that knows all about the Springs Preserve. Fortunately, I had my microphone. Hello, my name is Naomi. I'm here for my Nevada project. What is your name?
My name is Nathan Harper.
Can you tell me what your job title is?
Here at the Springs Preserve, I'm the preserve archaeologist.
How did Las Vegas start?
Well, a lot of people think that Las Vegas is a fairly new city, and it kind of is. But when people think of Las Vegas, they think of the Strip and they think of casinos. But Las Vegas is a railroad town. There was a railroad built between Salt Lake City and Los Angeles, and Las Vegas was the main stopping point between those two cities. And because of the water, because of the springs, it was important to have water for the locomotives, for the steam engines, for the trains, and they built shops to help with the railroad and with the trains. And so Las Vegas grew up really quickly, beginning in about 1905. And about 2,000, 3,000 or so people lived here. And by the time they started building Hoover Dam and Lake Mead, Las Vegas started to grow really fast. And so Las Vegas right now is one of the fastest growing cities in the world.
Can you tell me about the Old Spanish Trail?
The Old Spanish Trail was an important travel route for people coming from Santa Fe to the California coast, and people used it for trading. Trading caravans would pass through this area, and Las Vegas was an important stop on the Old Spanish Trail because we have water here at the springs. And so along the Old Spanish Trail, people who would travel between Santa Fe and California would actually stop here at the Springs Preserve to rest by the water and rest under the trees.
Can you tell me who started Springs Preserve?
The Springs Preserve is part of the Las Vegas Valley Water District. This place has always been important to the history of Las Vegas because of the springs, because of the water, and it was important to the Las Vegas Valley Water District because you had the water here, and this became a well field. So before Hoover Dam and before Lake Mead, this was the main source of water for the town of Las Vegas. And so the Springs Preserve was kind of designed and built in the mid-2000s, and we opened in 2007. And so next year, in 2017, it's going to be our 10th year anniversary.
Do you know which extinct animals used to live here in Springs Preserves?
We haven't found many extinct animals, but we know that we have a thing called a spring mound here. And spring mounds are found all throughout the Las Vegas Valley. And other places where they've excavated these spring mounds, when they've dug into these spring mounds, they found mammoth, and they find camels, and they find bison, and they also find things like American lions and dire wolves and saber-toothed cats. Here at Springs Preserve, we have a spring mound, and we're hoping here in the next few years that we're going to excavate our spring mound and find some of those types of animals.
Who funds Springs Preserve?
Who funds the Springs Preserve? Well, we get lots of money from grants. That is, we go to other organizations and we ask for money to fund our programs, for events, and for our exhibits and displays. And because we're part of the Las Vegas Valley Water District, some money comes from the Las Vegas Valley Water District.
How could we help conserve water?
Well, it's very important to conserve water because we live in a very dry desert, and for the past 10 years or so, we've been having a really severe drought. So it's important to think of things like how you water your plants in your yard, the types of plants you have in your yard that are maybe native to the desert. We call that xeriscape gardening. And you can use water-efficient appliances in your home. You can take shorter showers. You can turn off the faucet when you brush your teeth. Things like that may not seem like a very big thing, but over time, they really add up and they help us conserve water and help us protect the environment. I talked to a school group yesterday. You know what an artifact is? An artifact is something that people who lived long ago left behind. So it can be things like grinding stones, or pottery, or ceramics, or a lot of things that we find here are things like arrowheads that people used when they were hunting animals for food. So we find stuff like that, and it's pretty cool.
Are you familiar with Jedediah Smith?
Well, I know Jedediah Smith was an early explorer here and traveled across Nevada and came through the area a few times. Other early explorers we have, as we know, Antonio Armijo was a trader that traveled along the old Spanish Trail, and we credit one of his guides, a guide named Rafael Rivera, with being the first European American to see Las Vegas Valley. And then, of course, a little bit later in time, in the mid-1800s, you had John C. Fremont, who was a big explorer for the U.S. government and the U.S. Army that traveled across the western United States. And he was the one who first gave Las Vegas its name and actually made a map and put Las Vegas on that map the first time. So there's lots of explorers that traveled throughout the western United States and Nevada that helped add to the history here.
My last question is, how could we help Springs Preserves?
Well, it's very important to learn about where you live, and that's kind of the whole point of the Springs Preserve, is to teach people about living in the Mojave Desert. How can you live in the Mojave Desert when it's so hot and it's so dry and we don't have a lot of water? So we teach people how they can make their gardens, how they can make their yards sustainable, how they can have beautiful plants around them and not use a lot of water. It's also important to learn how we can use green technology to build things like energy efficient air conditioning, solar panels, things like that really help save a lot of energy and help us save money and help protect the environment. So the Springs Preserve is a great place to learn about how to do things like that.
Thank you for the information. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Man, Dr. Nathan sure knows his stuff. He had a whole lot of information to share about the Springs Preserve. He is too cool for school. I went back on my adventure. There was still so much that Dr. Nathan didn't explain about the exhibit. He didn't even tell me where to eat. All I know is that the Springs Preserve is a ride I don't want to miss. Bye everyone, and thanks for watching.